Good evening to everyone. I'm Jessica Thomas. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm here to facilitate the monthly mental wellness chat. We've been doing this chat for over 3 years at this point, which is pretty incredible. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about how to create an upward spiral. And this is a way to increase resilience. And so my hope is that everybody will learn something today and be able to apply it and kind of learn the concept of the upward spiral. We'll move on to our next slide. So I wanted to thank MS Visa News for bringing the MS Wellness Chat to the MS community. And then I also want to thank tonight's sponsor, which is Viatris. Thank you so much. And we appreciate you. So before we get started, we'll move on to our next slide. I always like to say that this is not a therapy session. This is just a resource, a mental health resource. I am a therapist, but this is a resource. And so introductions, just a little bit about me. I always introduce myself in numbers because it's the easiest. 19 is the number of years I've been married this year. Why is that relevant? Well, when I was a newlywed, I was diagnosed with MS. So it's been 18 years this year that I've been living with MS. Out of 17 of those years have been spent working as a social worker, helping other people live with their disease and find ways to live well with their disease, as I still continue to find ways to live well with my own disease. And then 16 is the number of years, how old my son turns this year. So you can see that I had a son after my MS diagnosis, and I have remained married since my MS diagnosis. So that tells you, and I continue to work in the field as well. So vulnerability is the only bridge to build connection. I put this slide in some of our mental wellness chats, and the reason is that I can talk about resources and psychosocial resources, strategies, tools, everything. But really what makes this mental wellness chat so popular is being a part of the conversation and sharing. And if you share, as long as it fits within the guidelines of sharing, I'll be more than happy to read it. We have Barbara on here from New York City. She's having fall-like weather in the summer, and we have Melissa from Destin, Florida. Hi, both of you. And so I ask you to be vulnerable and to share and input in the chat box sometimes. And the reason why, or the question box, and the reason why is that that's how we connect. If we have someone that's brave to say that, this is a resource they use, or this is the way that they've been feeling, often we might feel alone, but we're not. There's often other people that are feeling the same way as well. And we've got Sherry from Michigan. Sherry, thank you for joining us. So we'll move on to our next slide. So I'm going to start today's conversation with another tool that I use sometimes. I think that these are 4 things that are important for you to know about yourself. They are also things that may change over time. I've learned that what gave me joy in my 20s is absolutely not what gives me joy in my 40s. So they're things that change. Also, what sounds fun now is a lot different than what was fun years ago. And probably when I'm older, fun will change too. It'll continue to evolve. And actually, I do things that are more fun in terms of risk now than I did when I was in my 30s. So these 4 questions I think are good to know for yourself, and I want you to think about them. You don't have to put them in the question box. I just want you to pause and think about them. Take a screenshot or a picture of the computer if you can. So the first one is, what gives you joy? The second one is, what is fun for you? What does a good day look like for you? Being able to tell your doctor that is huge, because that is very telling. If you tell your doctor what a good day looks like for you, that will kind of explain how your symptoms interfere. That might say what's important to you. And so it's a really good baseline question or fact to share with your doctor. Then what matters most? And what is important to you? So thinking about those things, I just want you to keep them as your baseline, is thinking about, what gives me joy? What do I consider fun? What does a good day look like? what matters the most, and what's important to me. And I want you to become good at kind of knowing those questions and answers for yourself. And what you might find is that changes a little bit as life changes too. So just for this sake, I don't want you to answer the questions in particular, but do one of those questions stand out to you? The question that stands out the most to me is usually what does a good day look like? And the reason why is I think that's a really good question because I find that a really good day for me looks very different than what a day looks like for a friend of mine that doesn't have MS and doesn't deal with fatigue. Okay, so we have Deborah and Maria that both and Carol. What gives me joy? Okay, perfect. I love it. We'll continue to go forward in those in the slides. So we're going to talk today about spiraling up techniques and resiliency techniques. Now, the resiliency techniques I've been talking about for a while, and so I put them at the end of today's program because I really wanted to focus on the spiral up techniques. And but I didn't want to leave behind the resilience techniques because one, we always have new people on this this PowerPoint or this mental wellness chat, and they need to hear the resilience techniques too. And then we can always use to kind of hear them again. These information like this that's positive and helpful and supportive doesn't get old. And sometimes when we hear it differently, or we might find a way to integrate it differently, etc. We're going to move forward one more slide, and we're going to stay there for a little bit. So we're going to talk about spiraling up strategies. And so what we're going to do is I have this really great book, and you always ask me for what the title of the book is, and who's the author. So I'm gonna do this, and I'm going to hold it here for a second. So there's a book called The Upward Spiral. And I've used this in the mental wellness chat before, but what I'm going to use is the workbook for the upward spiral. And this is something that you can get on Amazon. I get no accolades for sharing this book. Just as a therapist, I used it frequently, and I thought it was a very good book, and I use it from time to time, and I like to share these resources with you. So the first thing is in other programs, I've talked about our brain chemicals. We have a lot of brain chemicals that are responsible for happiness and to help us to feel better. And there's things that we can do that can elevate that. For example, serotonin is a happiness brain chemical, and one of the things that we can do to elevate our serotonin is to exercise or to get some sunlight. Another one is oxytocin. Oxytocin we can activate. It's a love chemical, but we feel happy with oxytocin and often feel loved or connected. Holding hands or watching really cute videos of an animal if you don't have an animal. But if you do have an animal, pet your animal. And or if you have a grandchild, play with your grandchild to realize that you get feelings of joy. And the reason why is because that oxytocin is increasing. So for starters here, it's important for us to know when we're feeling down, what does that look like for you? How does that feel when you're feeling down? Because that's how we know it's good to put these strategies always in use. But part of the spiraling up is that sometimes things happen and we kind of feel like we spiraled down. And the idea of spiraling is up is when we realize that we've kind of maybe are kind of not at the level that we normally are mood wise, and we want to rise it just a little bit. What are some things that we can do? So the first thing to do is to label the emotion. Let's just identify and normalize. Okay, my mood is not it's not where it normally is. It's a little bit lower than usual. And and identify kind of what feelings you're feeling. Are you feeling frustrated, anxious, guilty, angry, alone, fatigued? You may feel isolated, sad, empty, exhausted, sleepy. Might feel stressed or scared, panicked a little bit, nervous, hesitant, frozen. I think frozen is one that people identify with stuff, where they just can't feel like they can't take action or the next step. And then recognizing kind of your physical symptoms. When our moods are lower, if we have depression or have other mental health diagnosis, what are the physical symptoms? Sometimes with feelings of sadness, depression, you may feel a backache, chest pain. That could happen with even anxiety, feeling numb or tingly, which I know that feels like that could be an MS symptom. Having a dry mouth, headache, sweating, having difficulty sleeping, increased appetite, or sleeping too much, etc. And so when we are dealing with shifts in our mood, where our moods are lower, and we are at the same time, dealing with, it might be a clinical diagnosis or not a clinical diagnosis, just a mood shift. There's things that we can do in our control and things that we can't do in our control. And so we're going to focus today on the things that we can do in our control. So one of the first things that we can do, and then we're going to go into the real spiral up strategies that I think that you guys will get super excited about, because I know you pretty well, and I kind of know what you are fueled by at this point for the majority of people on the mental wellness chat. But first, we want to review our life circumstances and the things that we can control, things that we can't. For example, in our relationships, how do we feel about our relationships? What are aspects that we can control and things that we can't control? A really good example is I have a teenage son, and so that's changed the dynamic of my idea of parenting. It looks different than it looked a long time ago, and it jolted me a little bit as my son has gotten older, because he wants to be alone more in his room, and that's not what I was used to. And so where I don't have control that he's growing up and he's becoming independent, but I do have some control at how I connect with him and engage and find his things that he's interested in, etc. And then also appreciating his independence a little bit too. So that's just sort of an example. Reviewing your current life circumstances. So first is relationships. Second is coping habits. What are you doing when you're coping? If you probably have some healthy coping and some unhealthy coping habits. And we've shared them in the chat. We're going to use the question box later today, so we don't need to share them right now. But your attitude for your, how's your general outlook, your general attitude, your beliefs. How is your exercise? Your sleep. Sleep and exercise are big in terms of helping with our moods, our attitude as well. Recent experiences. What's been going on in your life? What's been happening? And then other experiences. And really the purpose of this exercise is to really just understand how your life circumstances might affect your brain activity and your emotions and your mood. So just by looking at it and reflecting, you might say, oh, gosh, I realized that, since my grandchildren and my child and grandchildren moved across country, that they're no longer here, and that's a big change, and maybe that's a little bit why I've been a little bit more down, etc. So the next thing we're going to do is so we're going to look at some things. How can we create little shifts up? And we're going to start one with the activity spiral. So now for the chat box, I'm going to ask you a question, but we don't have a fancy slide for it. How many of you move when you're feeling sad or down or anxious, that you choose to exercise when you're feeling that way? I know for myself, so we have Maria that says she does. Steve says never. Thank you, Steve, for being honest. Carol says yes. Katrina says sometimes. I'm a big sometimes girl too. It really, Tina says half of the time. So one of the things that we can do is, if we are ever feeling a shift in our mood and we want to spiral up, exercise actually helps, because you get endorphins from it, you get dopamine, you get serotonin from it, and it helps to improve your mood a little bit. And it's so We have Julie that says sometimes, and Carmen says, I do not. Thank you for participating. So I'm going to, if you do not do this as an intervention sometimes, I want to challenge you to try it. And so if you are not able to, if you're in using a, scooter, power wheelchair, you're not able to ambulate, it's still finding some exercise that might be helpful to do. So there might be some stretching, there might be some breathing exercises we'll talk about too. But if you can physically move and exercise, and you are integrating and doing that in your life now, I recommend for you to do it if you notice a down spiral in your mood. So another thing we're going to talk about is choosing activities. So there's 3 different types of activities. I'm going to put this light on because eventually it's going to get really dark in here, but it might wash me out for a little bit. So there are 3 different types of activities. What activities are enjoyable? There's also achievement activities where you feel like you have like done something really good when you've done that. And then meaningful activities. So I'm going to give you examples for all of these. So taking a bath. So for enjoyable activities, might be taking a bath, watching sports, gardening, reading a book, eating, cooking, playing music, drawing, driving, going to concerts or plays, watching TV, or going on a trip. Achievement activities might be doing a crossword puzzle, washing the dishes. That is a mood booster, even though I don't enjoy it. When it's done, I enjoy it. Same with doing the laundry. Paying the bills, reading a book, engaging in a hobby, planning a vacation, going to the gym, fixing things, going for a walk, hike or run, learning a new language, taking a class like a dance class, or one day I want to take a cake decorating class. I really do. I want to learn how to really decorate cakes really pretty. And then examples for meaningful activities is spending time with family. It might be going to church or participating in a religious activity if that is something that you do. Watching your favorite sports team, spending time with a good friend, reading a book. So some of these can be in other categories. Visiting a museum or art gallery. Checking off an item off your bucket list might be meaningful and you have a sense of achievement. Writing a short story, journaling, or volunteering. So those are some examples of choosing activities for an activity spiral. So a part of this is you may, I want you to think about activities such as what would you consider, because some of these I know that we all don't connect with all of them. What's an enjoyable activity? What's an achievement activity, and what's a meaningful activity? And list them out for you. And that would be a good way to kind of know that, if I'm having a sense of, my mood is a little bit lower and I want to try to spiral myself up a little bit, then I can do one of these activities and see if it helps. I've asked you guys in the past, like things that you do when you're coping or when you feel like your mood is lower, and often music comes up so much. Either we have a couple people that play music on here. We don't have one of our music players on here, I think, from Greensboro. But people, they play music or they listen to music, and that's a big elevator for them. So one important thing is, so how do we schedule or work activities into our day? So I have talked about apathy quite a bit with this group. And last time I talked about apathy, and I remember that one of the participants wanted me to talk a lot more about apathy and helping with that. And so we're going to talk about this activity scheduling calendar as a spiral up, but it's also an apathy helper too. So for those of you who don't know what apathy is a sense of kind of just a sense of kind of just really not caring about doing anything. Motivation is really tough. Often apathy is very present in depression. With apathy, often if you are able to get motivated and to do things and to keep a routine, that actually is one of the most beneficial things for apathy. And so often, but people that are dealing with apathy, one of the things that we do is to really to reinforce the idea of having scheduling activities, scheduling things to do, and because there's no medication that can help with apathy, and apathy can be super frustrating if you experience that or you feel it. And if you think about Eeyore, he was kind of apathetic about things. He you know, like they would have to, his peers would have to talk him into doing things. And once he got there, he kind of had an okay time. It's kind of flat anyways, but he did enjoy things a little bit when he got there. So this right here is a like a scheduling block. I have a planner, and if it was close by, I'd show it to you, but I think I'd have to leave the room to actually find it right now because it's in my sunroom, I believe. But this planner is really great because just like this, it goes by the hour and it has a day of the week. And you can plan and schedule activities. So it could be exercise. You could schedule time with family and friends. You could schedule the things that you know that automatically boost your mood a little bit. And that is a very helpful tool to help you as you're kind of, you know, thinking and moving forward and trying to think, how can I move forward with creating an upward spiral? So the next thing we're going to do, so I talked a little bit about movement and the movement spiral, and I called it the activity spiral, but the movement spiral. So some physical activity suggestions, you know, really in the book, they have all sorts of different ones, but I'm going to say do what you enjoy. So any movement that you can enjoy and do safely is probably what you should be doing. I know for me, it's usually walking with a friend. I usually like to talk and walk at the same time. And that's what I enjoy. Some people might, you know, enjoy going swimming, doing water aerobics, and I know that many of you do. So, so doing whatever movement that is helpful and kind of starting where you are. You know, so wherever your physical ability is, and if you haven't started an exercise program, talk to your neurologist about getting a appointment to see a physical therapist because that can be incredibly helpful. And know that small changes make a big difference. So when we're thinking of like things to do, like if you think you know, one of the things I could do is I could schedule exercising as something to lift me up a little bit. Well, start small. If you're if you know maybe it's one loop around your neighborhood, or maybe it's to the mailbox and back. You know, we all live in different places and everything looks different and our experiences will be different. But the truth is that when you do a little bit of exercise, you're more than likely to do a little bit more too. And so other little strategies that can help is tying your shoes. So some people may not be able to have shoes on. I know at one point when I was dealing with a relapse, I could not wear tight tennis shoes because my foot was numb pretty much the whole time. But it healed. And one of the things I've realized that if I wear shoes, I'm more than likely to walk. So so it might not be walking that you're planning on doing. Maybe it's to go swimming in the morning. So maybe you wear your bathing suit for the day, if that's, or not the day, but a couple hours in the morning. Finding, you know, crossing over the barrier, something that will keep you from doing what you would like to do. And we're going to move on to our next spiral, and we're going to talk about the breath and body spiral. So we're going to go back one more slide. We're going to still stay on the spiral up, but thank you for. So for the spiral in this one, we are going to talk about breathing and how good breathing is for us. Often when we are feeling stressed, we're breathing, but we're not breathing in a intentional way. And one of the things that we can do is to help to relax our limbic system, and we can do that by intentionally breathing. And what that will do is it won't make you happy or sad or anything or change everything, but it may make you feel a little bit better, just a little bit better. So a couple of things that you can do that I recommend for breathing is breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. And that breathing pattern is really important. There's a type of breathing we've done on here called squared breathing. So we breathe in for 4, then we hold it for 4. We breathe out for 4, then we hold it for 4. We breathe in for 4, and then we hold it for 4. And then we breathe out for 4, and we hold it for 4. And so that square breathing can be helpful, or we do the 2-to-1 breathing. So far, I want to ask you, so we've talked about adding activities, exercise, and breathing. How many of you, do any of you use any of these strategies? We have some people that exercise that we talked about, but do you use any of these other strategies to help you feel a little bit better? So yeah, we have a lot of people chiming in. So we have yoga. Maria says yoga. Katrina says yes. Barbara says breathing. Julie says yes. Linda says breathing. Exercises, breathing. Breathing, yes. Music, journaling from Paula. Scott says I nap. I nap too. That's a good thing to do. So it's important to know there are things that you can do. And honestly, when you do them, you feel a little bit better. Sometimes though, when we're not feeling good, we don't think to do those things because we're just in a bad mood, or we just are feeling like we need to just get through whatever it is that's going on, or we might feel frozen and don't want to do anything. But one of the things that we can do to spiral up is to create either movement or go to an activity that would help you, or even practicing breathing. And even if you do one, I would maybe do another one. So if I sat on the porch and breathed for a little bit and collected my breath, I might call a friend, and that would be a meaningful activity to talk with them about whatever it was that was going on. And then Paula does something that I'll do as well. She goes to music right away. And there is I'm trying to find it. Okay, here. So there is an activity here that talks about spiraling up with music. And the reason why is when we listen to music, we tend to feel oxytocin. And that's the same, and one that can be a chemical that helps us to connect us to other people. And we also can feel a sense of endorphins, feeling happy, etc. So it's important to know you can bring music into your life so many different ways to spiral up. You can, sing in the shower, you can sing in the car, you can sing just in general. You can play an instrument. During COVID, I learned how to play the ukulele. Not that great, but that was kind of helpful, and it was really a release for me. We have a couple people on the chat that have played music, etc., and they normally would talk about it. You might want to go to a concert, etc. So the activity that I have for you for a spiral up activity is there can be calming songs and songs that kind of are exciting for you. It's really good to know what songs can boost your mood and when you need them. So, for example, a really upbeat song, if I'm feeling anxious, doesn't do anything for me. It actually can make my anxiety a little bit worse. So if you're feeling anxious, an excited song might not be quite what you need. You might need more of a calming song. Like, for example, I will deviate to like Norah Jones and Adele and songs like that are a little bit lower key. So it's good to identify for you what is a calming song for you, a song that you like, and let's use the question box. Let's connect with this. And what's a song that's calming for you, or what's a song that makes you feel excited or in a good mood? I love Brown Eyed Girl and then that Happy song. Both of those are, I would say, good songs right away for like excitable for me. But the other calming would be like Norah Jones song or Adele. So if you guys have any examples of like a good go-to song that you use, please share it. But know that music is a spiral up. So and it's important that sometimes music can elicit a difficult feeling or emotion. And if that's the case, you're not going to want to, if your mood is lower and you're feeling kind of sad, you're not going to want to put on a song that's going to remind you of someone that you miss. That's maybe not the right time for that. There's a time for that, but maybe in that moment, that's not going to be the spiral up that you need. So you might want to do another song. So we've got some, I knew it would take a little bit of time, but we got some feedback here. Okay. So Maria says The Electric Slide. That is a really fun song. Linda says Alicia Keys, This Girl is on Fire. Very good. Stacy says Seasons of Love from Rent. Very good. Scott says The Power of the Gospel by Ben Harper. Deborah says Don't Worry, Be Happy. Those are both good. And then Warren and Jane say I'm the happiest girl in the whole USA. Katrina says James Taylor for Calm and hard rock upbeat to get moving. So so those, just so you know, those are like really good strategies, good things to do, just to and then we have Carmen that says Harry Belafonte songs, and Paula says I have a playlist of the songs. I usually love ballads from the 80s. And then Melissa says, I Will Survive. These are all great. And I hope you're inspired by hearing from this. So knowing that music can help spiral you up, and as you can see, music can connect. I'm sure that as I was reading some of this, that y'all were smiling. I was smiling as I was reading some of this too. And so the next spiral up that I'm going to stay with or share, and then we'll move on to other strategies, is the strategy is sleep. So the sleep spiral. So if we notice that our mood is down, if we're not feeling as good, checking in, we've done that stop acronym before in the past where we, how are we feeling, or, how's your body feeling, etc. Where you identify how you're feeling, but often it is good to check in with yourself to see if you need sleep. Sleep as a basis is really important, and sleep hygiene is incredibly important, but it is a part of a spiral too. So, for example, if you've been dealing, with a lot of stress, you may realize, or if your mood has just been kind of jolted, it might be good to ask yourself, how did I sleep last night? I know my mood and my how I feel and how I handle problems is totally different if I took a good night of sleep and compared it to how it was on a not good night of sleep. Because we are so much more resilient when we have sleep behind us. And so sometimes that might just be a nap. And we have Warren and Jane. Jane just said it's Jane. Warren's okay, thank you, Jane. I'll say Jane next time. I always say Warren and Jane, but it looks like Jane is just usually the only one that's on. Okay, so we're going to move the slide now. We're going to talk about resilience strategies. So that was some spiral up strategies, and I hope that you like it. And this book, again, it's just called the Upward Spiral Workbook. It's a great workbook, and I just went through just a couple of the examples that they have. So we're going to move forward another slide, and we're going to just dive into resilience. So, so one of the first things I was just talking about for the upward spiral is sleep and resilience. One of the best things that we can do to be more resilient is to sleep, and to make sure we're getting enough sleep. So, so that is, an important thing. Talking with your doctor about sleep hygiene if you're not sleeping well, and then, just making sure that you are doing whatever you can do to support as good of sleep as possible that you can. We will move on to the next area of resilience. Exercise. So if you can see the spiral up, and the resilience actually has some common things. So I did this track because I thought it was a good story to share. So I have a family member who she and I were talking about exercise, and how hard it is to integrate exercise sometimes into your life, and where it's really important with disease, etc. And so she took me to a track that she goes to, and she makes sure that she does 4 loops. Now, she does not have MS, so that's important to note, but she does 4 loops every day for her mental health. And I thought that was really inspiring. And that was a way for her to create a habit, a routine. But 4 loops, that's all that she did, which equates to a mile. And that's been her commitment to herself. But there may be another commitment, another way that you would integrate exercise in your life. But I just share that story because I was very inspired by it. And I think we can inspire each other as well. So we'll move forward again. Social support. I already say that you guys are resilient because you're here. You're on the mental wellness chat. But social support is really incredibly important for people in general. And then when you add with for people living with disease, it can be a little bit isolating, et cetera. So that social support is important too. And really having a good amount of social support can really could connect with how your quality of life is in general. So there was a study a long time where they looked at people that were living with MS, and it seemed like regardless of the level of disability, people that had social connections had a higher quality of life. And so no matter if they had more disability, et cetera. And it was a very telling study. We'll move forward. So then mindful meditation. So again, this is kind of where the breathing comes back in. When people that are more resilient tend to be able to pause and meditate or work on their breathing, etc. One of the things that I do more than actually working on my breathing is that in the evenings in the summer, because it feels cooler in the evenings than during the day, I'll go out and I'll lay on the porch and I'll close my eyes and I'll just listen to the sound of crickets, birds sometimes if they're still out. And I just pay attention to all the little noises that I'm hearing. And that becomes meditation. So it's just allow myself to really focus on what is there. Or today I drove to the lake to work a little bit in my car, which is, I know, kind of strange, but sometimes I just want to look at something. And so for about 10 minutes, I went out and I sat by the lake and I just watched the water move. I saw the ducks. I just sat in the sun for a little bit, not too long, so it was warm. And that was a form of meditation too. So meditation doesn't have to look like what you think it might or supposed to look like. Might be just finding a way to quiet your mind and focusing on what's in front of you. And I find that it's either good to be able to focus with my eyes and my ears, or sometimes closing my eyes and just using my ears, and that helps as well. So we will move forward one more. Practicing gratitude. This is, a factor of resilience that can help us, and it can be a very easy go-to if you can make it a habit or a routine. I don't have my planner with me, but I do track something that I'm grateful for every day because sometimes big things happen. I joked in the beginning when we first were getting on that I got to see Adele this weekend, and I am like over the moon that I could see Adele. Like, she's one of my favorite singers. And of course, I'm incredibly grateful for that. But that is like a once in like a 10-year opportunity. And so I need to be grateful for the small little things like the flowers in my garden, or the good cup of coffee in the morning, or waking up and feeling okay. So really focusing on gratitude really should be the collection of the small things, and then you can add in the really big thing here and there. But those big things don't come that often. If we were always waiting for those to happen, we would not be very happy for a long time. But we're surrounded by good little things that happen every single day. We have Carol that says, while stretching after exercise, she uses spa music for relaxation. That is a great thing to do as well. We'll move forward with the next slide. Creating a mind shift. So this is something that I think a lot of people with MS do in many ways, because we've had to pivot and we've had to make changes, and so I do see that that often, that you have to kind of find the bright side, how to look at something differently, etc. But when you can purposefully do this, it can be very beneficial to you, and it can strengthen resilience and spiral you up a little bit. So if you're in a situation that at first feels bad, you can say, okay, am I learning something through this, or am I benefiting, or can I look at this from a different perspective? And sometimes it makes it a little bit easier, a little bit lighter. It does not change the difficult at all, but it may help you as you're working through. We'll move on to our next slide. Practicing optimism. Now, I don't mean this in a way that is minimizing, because practicing optimism is, it's just looking for the good. It doesn't mean that bad things don't happen and things aren't hard, but finding the little tiny silver linings, even if they're slivers, that can help you spiral up and help you be more resilient. We'll move forward. Identifying and deploying your signature strengths. So I'm going to have everyone participate in the question box here. Okay. So one of the things that you can do to be resilient is use the things that you are good at and that you are known for. I want us to go into the question box and share something that is your strength that you're good at. I am really good at listening, which is ironic because I do so much talking on these mental wellness chats. You guys don't get to see me really listen, and I'm sorry for that. It'd be very quiet if I did. But I'm really good at listening. So that's one of my signature strengths is I'm a really good friend. And so I enjoy, and I'm very organized. So I enjoy helping with things that need to be organized. And when people need help with things being organized, like forms, or if they're feeling overwhelmed, I love helping in that way. We've got Maria, who she's good at organizing too. We have Lina that says, I'm a thoughtful friend. Deborah says, speak truth to power. I love it. Julie says, good at listening. Maria says, dancing to Cuban music. That sounds like so much fun right now. And Katrina says, patience. Pamela says, a good listener and teacher. Paula says, I'm good at listening and helping my friends with their relationships. Barbara says, I'm good at listening and helping people when they need advice. Maria says, translating English to Spanish. That is all these are great things. That's a really cool one. Linda says, currently, I'm really good at being a first-time grandmother. Steve says, coaching minor sports. Steve, that is a tricky thing to do. I know it's a very rewarding thing to do as well. I had my son was in sports for the longest time. Lori says, researching, listening, and healthy diet planning. Those are all really great things. Carmen says, I'm very patient. Scott says, leadership qualities. So these are all really good things. You all have, everyone on this call has a signature strength. And when you deploy them, when you use them, when you share them with other people, they help you to be more resilient. What is something that you are grateful for today? Something small. So don't go big, something small. Because I find that when we share our gratitudes, you automatically get a little bit of a upward spiral, but then also the person that receives it and listens to. So Carol said, this is before that, she said one of her good strengths is being a mama, taxi, and cook. So being a mom and cooking and helping get her family everywhere. So Maria said for gratitude, her well-being. Scott says, my opportunity to improve. Lori says, finding a great recipe to share. For gratitude, that is great. Jane says, air conditioning and not having to work outside. That's a big thing to be grateful for, especially with it being so hot where you are. Carmen says, I'm grateful for no pain today. Deborah said, cataracts are corrected. That is great. Sherry says, I created a design for a contest. That is incredible. Paula says, I'm grateful today I finished my emotional journal therapy. I've learned so much. Lina says, for all these ideas and community. Linda says, I drove to and from my songbirds class. Great. Katrina said, I talked to a loved one. Carol said, being on this beautiful planet in a massive universe. Steve said, family and friends and a friend network. Barbara says, I am grateful for another day. Melissa says she's good at listening to family and friends vent when they need to get another point of view. So giving a good point of view. Julie says to be alive. Katrina says air conditioning is always on my to-do list or on my list too. These are really great things. And what I have learned is that if you share something that you're grateful for, so if you have I'm a small friend group person. Some people I know have really large friend groups, and I just have a small friend group. But I share the things that I'm grateful for often with my friends, and then they will share something that they're grateful for. I feel like gratitude is something that can kind of be contagious a little bit. And then if I don't have people at sometimes to share it with, I make sure I write it down every day, at least one small thing, and then I get to look back and see, well, wow, that's a lot of good stuff that I've been, that have happened. Melissa said she's grateful for her good days, the little pain, and the ability to focus. So if you are new to the mental wellness chat, you will know that next time you come back, you will see this. And it's an important slide for me because I think that consistency is really important. And I think that it's important to know that I'm not saying goodbye, that I'm saying I'll see you later. We're going to have tools and resources next month to share. You guys are going to have things to share with one another. And we're going to continue to be a part of the conversation and to continue to expand and increase and improve mental health for each of us living with MS. So not goodbye. See you later.